everyone, I'm LonestarK, and today we're going to be making a video game box art front cover for a ROM hack called Ultimate Superman. Now, this ROM hack's made by Billy Time Games. It's for the Sega Genesis. And if you're interested in getting a copy of this ROM hack, you can get the patch files from romhacking.net. Now, this ROM hack is based off of Superman by Sunsoft for the Sega Genesis. And it's going to be hard to top this cover, but we're going to give it a try. Now, the first thing we want to do is add an alpha channel to our image. And the reason you do that is so that later when we use the eraser tool, we're going to erase to just a clear background rather than what's currently selected as our background color in our color selection. We're gonna pull out this Superman logo, and we're gonna start erasing some of the background elements around that. So I'm just gonna use the fuzzy select tool to select some of this yellow space, and we'll quickly erase it. Now with these rocks, because they've got black details, it's going to be difficult to use the fuzzy select for this and to where it would be worth our time to do it. So I think it's going to be faster if we just start to use our Lasso tool to go around the rest of this Superman logo. Now, if you make a mistake like I did here, when you're setting down these nodes, what you can do is you can move these nodes by just clicking on the circle and dragging it to the new position. Now that we have our logo lassoed, we want to go up to select, and then we're going to invert our selection. That way we can erase everything that's around our logo. Now that we have our Superman logo, we're going to add to it, and we're going to be adding the word Ultimate up above it. And I've got a couple different ideas on how we're going to do that. But first, I'm going to pull out some of the letters that are also already in the logo, but will be in our new word Ultimate. So we got the U, we got the E, we have the M, and we have the A. The font used for the Superman logo is a font called Up, Up, and Away, but unfortunately I don't have this particular font, so we're gonna use a font that's similar. And what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna create a path, and then we're going to make our lettering curve along that path. So we're gonna use our path tool to lay down a few nodes, and I'm just going to try to curve the path along this upper edge of Superman. Rather than lay down a bunch of nodes like I did when we used the Lasso tool, I'm going to try to just make a simple curve with just a couple of nodes. So you lay down a node at the beginning, and you lay down the node at each end, and to curve it you're going to pull out these little squares, which allows us to kind of bend the curve. I'm not getting a uniform kind of curve here. It's a little difficult for me to follow right along the edge of that red and black, so I'm going to add a couple more nodes in here to make it a little easier. And when you're adjusting these squares that adjust the curve, if you hold down Shift on your keyboard, it'll make both sides of the curve uniform. Otherwise, what you can do is, if it's different on each side, is you can adjust one of the squares to a different position and length, and it won't adjust the other side at the same amount if you're not holding down Shift. That way you could have a curve on one side be very different from the curve on the other side of the point. Okay, so we have our curve, and now we're going to work on creating the text for it. So I'm going to use our text tool to write the word ultimate, and then we're going to adjust the font to this one called Review BT, which has a similar M, and the spacing on the letters are very similar as well. And what I'm going to do next here is we're going to adjust the font size of each of the letters, because I want it to be similar to the style that Superman is, where you can see, like, as the letters progress, they get progressively smaller than the ones before. So we're just going to line up the letters here with each of the letters in Superman, and we're gonna make them about the same amount smaller as we go along. And I've made the word ultimate a different color here, just to make it easier to see while we're messing with the sizes. that we have our text, what we're gonna do is you go over to the layer section and you're gonna bring up the context menu by clicking with the right button, and we're gonna select text along path. And unfortunately it shows that our path is not long enough, so let's go ahead and we'll extend that path so that the E will fit on the path as well. So now that we've put our text along that path, you can see that it's created an outline, and this outline is itself a new path that it's created. And you can see that in the path section on the right hand side where we normally see our different layers. So let's go ahead and move this outline path to roughly where we want the text to be. On the right hand side, we're gonna bring up the context menu and we're gonna select selection from path, and now we're gonna fill in that selection with a color, but we're gonna do that on a new layer. And I can see an issue here. So when we did text along path, we were doing the path along the upper parts of the Superman, but it doesn't look right, so we're gonna try to do it again, but this time along the curve along the lower edge of Superman. So let me go ahead and create another path which goes along that bottom edge. We're going to do the same thing again, this time the text along the second path that we created. And we're having the same issue where the E's not coming up, but I'm seeing another issue that I'm not really liking either. So it's not really fitting along both paths, and I don't think GIMP has a way to make the text fit within two paths, so we're gonna have to do it manually. I think we're gonna use the perspective tool. So I'm gonna cut out each one of these letters and then use the perspective tool to make it fit within these two paths that we've made. And this is not going to work because the L, I'm seeing now that all the text that we did, that when we did the text along a path, it changes that edge. Rather than the edge being straight up and down, it's at an angle, and it's not going to match with the Superman below. So we're going to use the text that we made before we made it go along a path, and we're going to take each one of those letters, and then we're going to stretch that with the perspective tool. And when you start to use this perspective tool, it's going to leave the unmodified letter that you're adjusting visible, which makes it more difficult. So to turn that off, we're going to turn off each one of these layers visibility by clicking that little eye icon. And then once we complete the perspective transformation, you click transform, and then the letter is going to disappear. So then you need to turn that layer back on by clicking the eye icon. This letter E is not really looking right, so I think first we're going to scale it down to about the right size we need first, and then we'll use the perspective tool. Okay, so now I'm going to create copies of each one of these letters, and then we're going to combine those copies into one image. So we'll have the word ultimate that we can then move around on its own, because I want to bring it down a little closer to the Superman. So even though we've made our word ultimate go essentially along the same arc as Superman, it's not really looking right when we combine the two. So I'm gonna try to adjust this down, and I don't think the rotation tool is gonna give us enough without making it look a little wonky. So we're going to use the perspective tool one more time to make it a little better. Now that we have ultimate in a good position, we're going to create a black border around this. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to create a new layer, and we're going to use the selection tool to select all of the white portions of ultimate, and then we're going to grow that selection using, under the select menu, there's a grow option. We're going to increase by just a couple of pixels at first until we kind of match up the same kind of outline that Superman has. I'm going to create the back edge of our the 3D ultimate, and rather than copy the black outline, since it's kind of rounded in a few spaces, we're going to take a copy of the white letters of ultimate, and then we're going to paint that black, and we're going to adjust this a little bit to where we'll try to emulate the same amount of 3D that Superman has. So I tried to do another path along that back edge to see if we could emulate that, but that's not really going to work out right, since we used the perspective tool on ultimate to change that curve earlier. eyeballing where this back edge, where the black ultimate should be, it's just not working. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that one edge of the N and we're gonna make it the same for the edge of the E, and we'll adjust our black ultimate down to that the end of that line. So now that we have that adjusted, what we're gonna do is we're going to go along the top of each letter and just create a path from the white letter to the black letter in the back, and then we're gonna select stroke path, and we're gonna give it in this case, a 6 pixel stroke, just to start to create that 3D effect. We're going to do the same thing along the bottom of this U here. I'm going to create a new layer and we're going to start filling this in with red. I think it's going to be a little easier if I select that our black ultimate, and then we'll shrink the selection by 6 pixels. That way we keep that back edge black, and then we'll start to fill that in red. That'll help us out a little bit. There's no easy way to kind of make the selections that we want and then fill it all in with the red. I was thinking maybe I could do that, but it looks like I'm going to have to use our lasso tool to go around each section. And as long as our red layer is below our edges, that our edge layer that we created earlier, we can make our lasso tool just within those black lines and then fill it in. I'm also going to be filling in the vertical black, and I'm going to create a black layer for that. There's a blemish down here on the M of Superman. I'm just gonna fix that real quick using the eraser tool. Okay, so we have our 2-color 3D effect with Ultimate, but I'm gonna add a little more texture on this one side of the U to make it the same like the S has in Superman. So we're just going to copy this and we're going to move it up there, and then I'm going to adjust the selection in just a way to where we can then erase part of our copy, and it'll be along that U and give it a little more depth. Okay, that looks good. So we now have our logo, Ultimate Superman. I'm going to combine all of these different layers into one. That way it makes it easier to move these around. Now for our main image that we're going to be using, it's an image of Superman that I found online. And I'm going to just scale it up, and we're going to do a scale that doesn't keep the perspective, but you can't really notice it. Superman still looks, his body still looks proportional. Let's move this, our logo, Ultimate Superman, up to the top, up above the image of Superman. I think would look best up there. And at the bottom, we're gonna put some of the developer names down there. So let's go back to the original Superman cover, and we're gonna pull out Sunsoft, just using our fuzzy select tool, and then we're going to increase the selection by just a couple pixels. So now we're gonna copy, and then we're gonna paste it on our cover as a new layer, and then we can move it around wherever we want. Okay, so we got Sunsoft. Let's go ahead and do the hacker. The ROM hack was created by Billy Time Games, which they have. Billy Time has a logo that we're going to be using. I'm going to take the black out of their logo. Now it's a little difficult to see the white part of Billy Time Games, so we're gonna go back and we're gonna add a little bit more of that black outline around it. And you just create a new layer, and on the old layer you're gonna select the empty space, and then you invert the selection. And then on your new layer, you're gonna grow that selection by just a few pixels. And then on the new layer, you're gonna just paint black. And that should create an outline of the, just a few pixels outside of the layer. And now we're gonna copy this and bring it over to our new cover. And you can see that I've made a mistake here, so it only copied just the black layer that we had created. It didn't copy the rest of the Billy Time logo. So what you have to do is, since we've made this image 2 different layers, we'll go back to the Billy Time logo, and instead of selecting copy, we're going to select copy visible. That way it's going to select everything, not just from the one layer that we are currently on, which happened to be the black layer. That's why when we originally pasted it, it only pasted the black. Now our cover's starting to look good, but there's something missing. So I'm going to try to add this Sega Genesis logo, but first let's try to copy this Sega seal of quality. It'll give us an excuse to use our elliptical select, which I rarely use. Okay, so we have our circle portion selected, and we want to add to that selection this rectangular portion outside of it. We're going to use our lasso tool, and when you're making your selection, just be sure to hold shift on the keyboard. That way it doesn't replace our circular selection, it just adds to it. Okay, so you can see here what happens when you forget to add a transparent background to your image. When you try to erase what's around our seal, and rather than erasing it to clear, it's essentially what it's doing is it's painting what we currently have as our background color, which is red. instead. So what you have to do is you have to go up to layer and then transparency and then add alpha channel. And now when we use the eraser tool, rather than it painting our background color, it's gonna erase it. And I'm just inspecting the edges here of our seal before we copy it over and put it on our new cover. And there's no room at the bottom for our Sega Genesis logo now, so I think I'm going to add it at the top. So we'll go back, we'll undo what we did before, and now I'm just going to use the lasso tool at each little edge of this polygon shape that the Sega Genesis has. Make the selection around it. We're just going to copy it and then paste as new layer. And I'm just kind of using the ruler numbers at the top to just kind of eyeball the center. We're going to move Ultimate Superman down. And I think that's going to be it. That's our cover now for Ultimate Superman for the Sega Genesis. Tell me what you think in the comments.